All right, so welcome. It's so nice to see so many people come out for today's training. Today we're going to cover BPOs and valuations. This is part 2, so we're going to go over more of the art. Where I should say we already covered the art. This is the science behind how to do valuations. And as I mentioned in the last class, this is also probably the weakest part of most agents' games. So I appreciate you guys coming out to learn about it. All right. So just to give you the quick refresher on what types of valuations are out there. BPOs, as you recall, are done by brokers, right? They include comps and photos and descriptions. Appraisals are the same thing, but they're done by appraisers. AVM is an automated valuation method, so that's done by a computer like a Zestimate or any of the, through the MLS. You can get them through Realist, etc. And then a CMA finally is just data pulled by an agent. So I don't know what just happened to my screen, but we're going to tough through it. So what's best? Well, BPOs. You know what? I think.
It's not usually making that noise.
Yeah, well, we're trying to include Kate on GoToMeeting, but I think Kate, if you're here, we're cutting you loose. You're messing up my screen. Sorry, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
See if that does a better job. Oh, look at that. So of all those 4 methods, which do we think is best? Well, obviously, my humble but most accurate opinion is BPOs, right? But I'll tell you why. So, we talked about who can do the different types of valuations on the previous screen. Some of those require certification, right? So appraisers are all certified, have to go through a series of classes. They also have to do an apprenticeship for 2 years under another appraiser. I mean, it's not a short process. BPO, what is it now, 60 hours, I think, to be a real estate agent? And 90, and you're qualified. So it's not difficult to become a realtor, and you don't need any additional certification to do BPOs once you are a real estate broker. Skills-wise, well, it's just like anything else, right? There's people that are good at what they do, and there's other people that are just occupying space and aren't very good at what they do, and that's true in both categories. The resulting quality of the reports can also vary, right? There's good appraisers and bad, and the work product that they produce can vary. Did you know the form is the same form for both? So when you do a BPO, you're using an appraisal form. Now this is where BPOs excel. So an appraiser has to use sold comps and can only use sold comps. Well, in a changing market, the actives sometimes can be a better indicator of what's going on, right? I mean, the solds truly show what a buyer was willing to pay and the seller was willing to sell. But in a rising market like this, a home sold 90 days ago for $200, and all the actives are listed at $240. Pretty safe to assume that prices are going up, right? So to really get the full context, it's helpful to have actives in your report, and only a BPO has that. So you guys all remember this slide from last time, right? In this house. All right, so we're going to do a sample BPO today. That's how you're going to learn this process and how you're going to get good at it. It's not going to be this house, and it's not going to be 28 pages like that BPO, right? But we are going to do a house at 714 48th Street East in Tacoma. And we'll kind of walk through the process and the steps involved, and we're going to do some of the research, and we're going to figure out what we think this home is worth, all right? Does that make sense? So you guys all got the email after 2 weeks ago, and the matrix that came with it, right? The attached doc that was several pages long.
Yeah.
So I printed out part of it that we're going to use so that you have it handy. If you already have it handy, just keep it there, all right? So it all starts with research. Why do you think when we first get a BPO assignment, instead of going to the property, the first thing we're actually going to do is start researching on our computer?
So it's not influenced by the neighborhood or something, or?
Well, it's more because we kind of want to know what we are expecting to find when we get there,
Yeah, but what's?
right? And then it illustrates when it's not what we were expecting to find. But it also can be very helpful to have all this data in your head or on your notepad when you get to the property, because it may prompt you to look for other things. So for example, if it's on a septic system, right? Well, you wouldn't necessarily notice that if you went to the property and didn't already know that the property was served by a septic system. But it's helpful to shoot a photo of the stacks when you get there so that you can illustrate that in your report to the asset manager who might be sitting in Dallas, right? Or if you think it's a mound system or a vault system, those are things that you would see when you got to the property, and it's helpful to know that when you're headed there. You might not identify it as such when you just noticed it out of context, right? So let's go look for the county records for this property. See how fast our wireless network is. There we go. So did you guys write down that address? Somebody? 71448?
48th Street East.
All right, so we're going to just put 48, and we're going to see if it finds it. Ooh, look at that. Two different parcel numbers. One's east and one's south. And we wanted east.
Yes.
Even if we didn't see that, we could probably guess which one we're doing a BPO on, right? One's owned by Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation. Do you know who that is?
Freddie Mac.
That's Freddie Mac, exactly. Make that a little easier. Is that easier?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to click on the parcel number for this house. And do you have just a blank notepad, or do you want to use mine? I'm going to ask one of you to take notes
I can take notes.
while we're doing our research.
Hand off.
All right. So this is the parcel summary. We can see it's residential. We can see what its assessed value is. We can't see a lot more beyond that. But these headers tell us where we could find more information, right? And we're focused on the house.
So the tax assessed is for 2013, I can't quite read
Yeah,
everything.
tax assessed for 2013. Let me see if I can go one.
81,000? Wow,
Too
okay.
big. All right? Yeah, so not a very expensive house. Let's see if we can figure out why. Well, here's square footage, 740 square feet, so make a note of that. Year built, 1918. Why do you think they would say adjusted year built?
Because they had modifications or some sort of improvements at
Some
point.
updates, yeah.
So it's updated to 1918?
They did a no, it was
Oh.
year built in 1918, it was updated to 1951, which is still funny, right?
Okay.
But that means that they did some remodeling, but they did it a long time ago,
Mhm.
right? 2 beds, 1 bath. Please make a note of that. So we know we have a single family. It's in fair quality but average condition. So we're already starting to form an image in our mind of what we're expecting to see when we get out to this property, right? It's a tiny little 100-year-old
Frame type
house.
house.
Yeah, which is fine, right? In Tacoma, that's not that uncommon,
Still normal.
all right? Anything else we would want to know from the county?
Well,
Property size? Does that,
Lot size?
yeah, lot size?
Absolutely.
that was,
Maybe not on this tab.
it was on before, wasn't it?
Slab, roof, ceiling, wood deck, wood roof. All things we would want to know if they're typical for the area. So now let's go to land, Paul, and we'll see what the size of the lot is, okay? 6,050 square feet. So make a note of that, please. That's about it. Anything else you want to know?
Well, does it tell there if it's, yeah, sewer, septic, those kind of things?
Okay. Sewer slash septic installed. Is that confusing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm confused too, right?
Yeah.
It's, in our minds, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So we're going to dig a little deeper. But now we know what the county is telling the world that it is, right?
It's got water on the property, but it doesn't even
Doesn't say
say.
what type and
Power
color.
installed and water installed would mean public power
City
and
sewer.
public water.
Okay, and
Yeah.
city water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this would be a public system. They don't truncate it. You know, they have this blanket term, which ends
Okay.
up confusing us.
Well, I mean,
Right.
I know, I happen to know that area, and I would think it would be on city sewer.
Yeah, I would too. But we can't,
Can't assume that.
until we can prove, right?
Okay.
We don't want anything in our report to be opinion other than the price. That is our opinion of price. But every other piece of data in our report is going to be fact. Okay? All right? So we covered well, we covered sewer, we got square footage. You wrote bedroom, bath count down, right?
Yeah.
We have enough to start looking for comps if we wanted, right? All right, so let's go back to our little checklist here. So we've researched county records. Do we know if it's an HOA yet?
We don't know.
We don't know that. We have an opinion, right,
Yeah.
of Tacoma and all that, but we don't know for certain. Why do you think we would go to the MLS?
See if it was listed before.
Exactly, prior listing. So we're not looking for comps yet, but we just want to see if this property is listed or has been listed previously. So let's go there. And this all would take 3 to 5 minutes, right? If we were just cruising along, clicking through and making notes. And if we had a faster connection.
She's sure pretty with that headgear on.
That is nice, huh? I can't coach it. I'm hoping my...
Knocked out.
There we go. All right. So we are just going to do the address, right? Oh, it timed out. Can you tell from that last house that I was looking for comps for this house?
I thought it,
Did you see that picture?
well, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cute if it's that house.
Which
I didn't know if
one,
you
was
had
that
it.
6616 East J Street?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was, 'cause that's, if that was, that's the one I just put under contract.
Oh, you just wanted to show off. And
Yeah, right.
that was real subtle.
Coincidental.
Okay, so one match. Now, I didn't check any statuses, right? So it could be an old whatever. But we know at least we're gonna find the house and we're gonna find some answers.
Yeah.
Now, when we get the answers, are they gospel? Who's providing the answers?
Listing
Right, another real estate agent. So when it comes to information in the MLS, you have to have a posture of trust but verify, right? And I'm using the word trust loosely, because you really don't want to trust anything you find in there, but it'll be an indicator of what you're hoping to confirm, okay?
Might see pictures or something, so.
We'll definitely see pictures, or at least one,
Well,
right?
No, I don't even know. Well, yeah.
You'd
So
have
if
to
it's
see
real-
them- you'd
if
have
it's
to see
really
them.
old, don't they sometimes don't even have a picture anymore?
No, they'll keep one photo as long as the database goes back.
Okay.
And last I checked, they didn't have anything older than like 2003 for a
Right.
listing date, but I think they've expanded the database.
Yeah, I think they go back into the 90s now, because I've seen them, but I've seen some that didn't have pictures at all.
So here's a May 4th, 2005, this property sold for $141,000. Now,
Okay.
I gotta make sure it's east, not south, right? Now that we know there's two houses with the same address
Yeah.
in Tacoma, which this one is. So I can click on that.
That was almost exactly the top of the season, of the market in 2005, 2006.
So there's our cute little house. Okay? So what do we want to know from this? We want to look at photos, but there's only one of one, right? So there's nothing to click further.
Can you expand it so we can see the house better, or, I mean, just the photo itself?
Yeah.
It's really cute. Back in 2005, it was really cute.
Yeah. And kind of typical for the area down there.
It's better than typical, really, I mean,
So that's just looking at a photo, we can go, this should be a pretty good one to comp. Because there's a pretty high concentration of these style homes in that area. So we should be able to produce a pretty good BPO. Now, one thing that we didn't answer with the county records was HOA. So HOA, this is another great one for realtor competence, right? Lots of agents leave those blank. So if you've never put a listing in, you may not be familiar with the property manager name and phone number field or the community field and all that. But if they leave that blank, it doesn't prove that there isn't one, right? So where else could you go to verify if there is?
well, I mean, if you do an address search of the area, you would know if it's in a certain subdivision, if it's in a certain HOA.
Address search in here or in Google?
Well, I was thinking in there, like, you know, if you looked on other houses on the street and they said anything about an HOA.
Okay, now I get you. So if maybe 8 show up
Yeah,
and 4 of them show that there's an HOA, well, that's probably a good indicator that yours has one too.
yeah.
Great, that's a great point. Another good place is the public records because of the legal description. I live in a community called Trossachs. In my legal description, it says lot number whatever, Division 1, Trossachs, blah, blah, blah. If it said autumn wind or whatever, then I would know, okay, it doesn't guarantee there's an HOA. But if I see a name like that, now I can go to Google and type autumn wind HOA.
Yeah.
And if it pops up and it says
It's a subdivision.
autumn wind HOA, Tacoma, Washington, then I know I'm in an HOA. Okay? And that's an important piece of information for your client. Remember, your client here is a bank, in this case Freddie Mac. Why would that be important to them to know?
Well, it's an added cost.
And might be a severely delinquent
Yeah,
issue
Oh, yeah, 'cause
that could result in a foreclosure.
yeah, because it is,
Oh,
they
that's right.
have to pay 6 months.
If they have super lien status, that could be a problem.
Yeah,
You're right, Freddie's on the hook for 6 months in Washington State. You're on the hook, the foreclosing party is on the hook for 6 months of HOA dues prior to the foreclosure. And so they would have 6 months plus however much time since the foreclosure, right? So if they foreclosed last month, there'd be a total of 7 months owed. But if that individual is 6 years behind, we've gotten phone calls on assignments from HOA saying, oh, by the way, your doorknob is on the front porch, please remove it. We're like, what are you talking about? Well, we rekeyed it and seized the property, and your doorknob and your key box are now on the front porch, you might want to pick them up. So we have to go back through Freddie Mac or whomever and say, hey, you got a fight on your hands, here's what's
because
going on.
their lien was more than the house was worth or something?
No, the court can award them the property just to settle this $14,000 lien or whatever, okay? So we now have a pretty good feel that this is a property in this part of Tacoma, probably doesn't have an HOA, and so we're gonna continue on, okay? Is anyone uncomfortable with that assumption?
Just to back up for just a second on, okay, so you said on the HOA, you can go to public records and it'll show on there on the deed?
No, on the legal description.
Legal description.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you noticed, I was gonna click on it to show you, but the parcel number was incomplete in the MLS. Imagine that,
Wow.
right? It was only 5 or 6 digits. Well, we all know Pierce County, it's 11, I think.
Yeah.
It's certainly not 5. But I would click on the real list. The shortcut would be just click on the real list link
Well, realist is down right now anyway,
for the APN. Oh, is it?
yeah.
Again,
Yeah. So then I would go back to I've got Pierce County open on my computer right now, right? I would just go there. I've already got the parcel found.
Right, division.
And I would just
of-
look, in fact, let's just do that so that we can put our minds at ease, right? So, on the summary page, down here, they call it tax description. Well, that's really a legal description,
Okay.
right? Barlow Heights. So I would type Barlow Heights HOA into Google and see if it pulled up Tacoma, Washington. What you'll find is there's lots of HOAs and the names are common enough that you'll find Barlow Heights, Tennessee or something like that. And that's fine. We just want to see if there's
Probably
one in
not
Tacoma,
in the, huh?
right? So, I mean, if you want, you can type that, Beth,
Sure,
but I won't force you.
I will,
Might be interesting though.
yeah.
Okay, I get it.
All right. So now we have a laundry list, right, of what we know about the property. Okay? I think we saw 6050, so I can't remember where I got 9.
6050 is correct, at least that's.
I probably got that out of the MLS. Yeah, that old listing probably had it wrong, right? HOA, what'd you find, Beth?
I'm still typing.
Okay. Septic and well, we found, we think it's sewer, based on what the county labeled it, even though it was a little confusing, but also because of our knowledge of that part of Tacoma. And it's city water.
I don't know if it's Tacoma, but it's just an advertisement for a house for sale, there's no HOA.
Perfect. So we've corroborated our HOA research. And HOA research really is an art. You know, you have to be kind of a PI as you try to figure out. It would be great if there was just a database, you know, like the Department of Corporations for the state. You know, you can look up any business. Well, it'd be awesome if the HOAs were all licensed, because then we could look them up too.
Well, in regards to that, so since, you know, this is something that I do know personally, and you know personally, that we know that this area doesn't make sense to have one there.
Right.
But if it's an area we're not familiar with that much, you would really research before you moved on, is what you're
I'd
saying?
spend a lot more time, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably do 3 or 4 Google search sort of variations. I also would go to the Department of Corporations, you know, this state, why am I drawing a blank? Who regulates the businesses in this state?
Oh,
No? I can picture their website right now.
Oh, you mean not labor and
do you know what,
industries?
Department of License?
No, it'll come to
It's
me.
not labor.
Anyway, I would go to the state website and I would search for a few different versions of Barlow Heights HOA, Barlow Heights Homeowner Association, and just find nothing and then move on. Okay? There are some areas that, you know, they're obscure, they don't have any web presence, so you can't find them. You know, those ones can give you trouble.
Yeah.
We have had properties where we didn't find them, but then they found us once we got listed and under contract, because they see a for sale sign. Then they start calling the listing agent, you know, because usually in the smaller HOAs, the board, they're all residents, right? So they drive by this vacant house that's been vacant for 2 years and they see a Miller Lane sign, then they call Miller Lane and go, well, you know, that Joe who moved out 2 years ago, he owes us $4,000.
I mean, there's a lot of places in Lacey that are kind of like that,
Yeah.
that, you know, they actually have an HOA, but it looks more like that type
Right.
of a thing.
Yeah, so that's why you just want to be as thorough as you can, and there isn't a perfect database for doing it, so you really got to be creative, okay? But now, based on our local knowledge on this house, we're feeling really comfortable that we have a good understanding of what we're dealing with. So now, before we go to the property, we're actually going to go into the MLS and look for comps,
Okay.
okay? So the filters for pulling comps are the matrix that's in your book there. And I have some spare copies if you just want this page. You got the thing there, I'll give you that. So look at how we set this up. It's actually a really handy matrix, and it's by design. We wanted to have a tool that tells you what criterion to use and which ones to loosen and when. Okay? And we distilled it all down to this neat little table. Okay? So the filter characteristic is in the first column. Bedroom count, bathroom count, radius, square footage, etc. Where you start your filter is column number 2. And then how to expand your filter is column number 3. So we'll give the easiest example would be distance from the house, right? The radius from an MLS number in the search field is a drop down. So you just put it on a quarter mile and see what comes up. And then you move it to a half mile, and then you move it to a mile. The last column tells you the sequence under which to move things. All right? So it's acceptable to go all the way to a mile. It's actually acceptable to go beyond a mile if you're dealing with rural or very unique properties, like excess acreage, horse property, waterfront, those sorts of things.
So up to 1 mile for residential area?
Yep. And that means urban and suburban. Then rural, it would be acceptable to go up to 5 miles. And really, candidly, you could go beyond that depending on what you were dealing with. And this matrix is meant to be a instruction on how to find comps. You can expand, once you get good at this, you can expand really anything as long as you defend it. Like an example I gave in a previous class was, what if I had waterfront property on Lake Joy? Does anyone know Lake Joy out near Carnation?
I just know on the map.
Yeah, so no powerboat lake, decent size, maybe only 50 houses around it. So nice setting, but difficult to find comps just among those 50 houses, right? What are the chances that there's been 3 actives and 3 solds in the last 6 months? Yeah. So then you start to go, well, could I compare a house on Lake, if I'm a buyer and I want to live out that way, would I consider Lake Joy comparable to Lake Marcel, or maybe even Ames Lake, or some of the other smaller lakes that are kind of littered around the sort of rural east side? Absolutely, right? If I'm seeking to live in that area, it's probably because I work at Microsoft, I make good money, but I want the rural feel. Well, the rural feel is going to be at any of those lakes.
Does it matter if it's like in a different school district or something like that?
You would have to decide,
Okay.
right? Because what you're trying to argue in this example to an asset manager in New York or Dallas or wherever is, because a house sold on Lake Marcel for $400,000, that's of the same design appeal, square footage, and everything else, that your house, your subject property, is also worth $400,000. Well, if one of them's the Seattle School District and the other is Lake Washington School District, you might not be able to make that argument,
Yeah.
right? Because they're so
There
dramatically
should be an
different.
adjustment for that.
Exactly. Yeah. And you make a good point, Beth, because maybe it's, yeah, the homes are comparable, but I'm going to make some dollar adjustment for the lousy schools
Yeah.
or
'Cause
superior
it's-
schools, whatever.
It would be
Right.
a buying plus or
Right.
minus depending on what the situation is.
So this tangent I'm on is just to illustrate that there are occasions where you might go 8 miles to prove that 2 lakes are similar or 2 horse properties are similar or whatever.
Properties or something.
Okay? Now the thing to remember is, as you sequentially loosen things, you have to restrict the previous one that you loosened already, right? So if I go to a half mile and I don't get any additional properties, and we're going to do this, so I'll show you what I mean. But let's say I do all the filters exactly as I laid out, and I get 0 properties show up because a quarter mile is just too tight of a radius. Then I'm going to go to a half mile. Then I'm going to, and let's say I still get 0. Then I'm going to reduce it back to a quarter mile, but then expand the bedrooms.
Okay.
Oh,
Then I'm going to take the bedrooms back to 3, and I'm going to expand the bath. Or no,
So it's like a
bathrooms.
give and take, give and take.
you don't leave
give
it
and
all
Right.
expanded.
So they're like levers, right?
Okay.
You want to move as few levers as possible, but there will certainly be occasions where you're going to move all 5 levers before you get enough comps. Okay? So does that make sense to everybody before we actually go and do it?
And then, well, my question would be, if they, say they're in the quarter mile, there is 1 comp, and you need to expand,
Yep.
and you get 1 more,
Yep.
but then you do just what you just said, you move that one back and try another second thing. Do you have to explain how
No.
you got to those
This is
places?
all just your internal
Okay.
sort of sequence to come up with your 6 comps. Because then what you're going to say at some point in your BPO is the comps provided are considered to be the best available. And the only way you can really say that with conviction is if you expanded it only as minimally as possible, but enough to get 6 comps. Right?
You don't have to like explain how you did each thing.
No. You'd give that level of explanation when you exceeded all the maximums to still come up with your comps, right? Like remember in the last class, that really big house that was
Yeah.
overbuilt, remember how I included the MLS searches to show, hey man, there's nothing in 5 miles, that's why I went to 10.
Yeah.
So I only did that because in Renton, that's suburban. You shouldn't even have to go beyond a mile. But for an 8,000 square foot house, you bet you're gonna go beyond a mile.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to go 8 miles.
Just to
And
find
then
one
it,
that
even
was
then it
comparable.
wasn't even,
Yeah,
even then
and
there
it
wasn't really comps.
Wasn't really comparable, yeah. Yeah, if you really think back to that property, the
Because the way it
reason
was
it
built
was
and
a train
everything.
wreck is
No, please.
there are other 8,000 square foot homes in the marketplace. They're gorgeous, and they're built with $1,000 a foot finish. And this thing was built $150 a foot. So it's, to compare it to a 7,000 square foot home that's truly designed the way a 7,000 should be, our house wouldn't be a comp for that house if it were selling. So really it shouldn't be a comp for our house either. But square footage is the #1 criteria they worry about, right?
Okay.
Be up number 2, I guess, besides distance.
Okay.
So, anyway. Right, so we have an old MLS number. Doesn't matter that it's from 2005, right? Because we want it as a point on a map. So it doesn't matter how old it is.
I didn't write it down though, did you?
We're gonna go back into the MLS and we'll grab it. Oh, it doesn't like me. All right, so here's the old MLS number. Now, when you choose the search dropdown, are we going to go single family, multifamily, vacant land, cross property, etc.?
And go to
Single family.
Single family.
family.
If I'm looking for this house and only this house, I always use cross property. Because you never know when an agent may mislabel something that's a condo as
Oh,
a house.
if you were looking
or
for
vice
that
versa.
house.
Right.
Right, okay.
But because now we're looking for comps,
Yeah.
we're going to go to quick.
What is, I can't see what that MLS was, some big long number, huh?
I'm copied it, so
Okay.
I'm gonna paste it, right? So let me make this a little bigger. It's funny, the TV. Oops. How's that?
2505.
Okay. So we want 3 actives and 3 solds. Can we do pendings?
That's what I wondered.
I would
Pending is
imagine
the
if you
same
can
as
do actives,
active.
pendings worked as, kind of qualify like an active.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What I normally will do is I'll leave the pendings out unless I'm having trouble finding. It just feels cleaner to me to say, here's actives and here's solds. The reality is, a pending actually is an even better data
It
point,
is.
right? Because it
Somebody's
it
wanted
triggered an offer,
Yeah.
right? So we're gonna go ahead and check them all. All right. Defaults to a quarter mile, so that's per right off our table. What else do we need to fill in?
Beds, baths, square feet, plus or minus.
Okay, what was our beds?
We have 2-bedroom.
Now look what happened here. All statuses, quarter mile,
You have 15 so far.
15 already.
Right,
Now as we add more filters, that number's going to go down, right?
right.
But 15, that's a great starting
Not bad,
point.
yeah.
Right? So 2 beds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. What if we did this?
Plus.
We got 6 more.
That's where you go. Go there.
If you're a buyer, what are you going to look? What are you going to prefer, a 3-bed or a 2-bed?
It depends, because if it's the same square footage.
You're right, you got full
It could-
bedrooms.
Yeah, you got.
Really?
Well, if it's the same square footage on the house, 3 bedrooms are gonna make
3 tiny bedrooms.
3 tiny, I mean, plus your living room and everything.
What's your table say about bedrooms?
On here it says,
Use 3 beds, use 3 to 4. If 4, use 3 to 4.
if less than 4, use less than or equal to.
No, if greater than 4.
Oh,
Use
if
less
greater than
than
4.
equal to number
What's
of
the
beds.
starting point? Column 2,
Right, same number, okay.
all right? So column 3 is how to expand,
Uh-huh.
but your ideal is to have exact.
Right.
Because
So-
I would argue your position. If I'm a buyer, I don't see those as interchangeable. I either need a 3rd bedroom or I don't.
Right, I'm just saying, I've heard different people.
Right. Now
Some
if
people, they don't want that 3rd bedroom because it reduces the
let's say we
living
get
space.
through all 5 levers are expanded to the max and we still don't have enough comps at 2 beds only, then I would go 2 to 3 and I would make an adjustment for our subject not having a 3rd bedroom.
Okay.
But that's not ideal.
Okay.
Ideal is finding a bunch of 2 bedrooms,
Right.
right? All right, so we're gonna keep it at 2 specifically. Baths, what do we have?
1.
Square footage.
740.
All right.
740.
So what's the table say?
Plus or minus 20%.
All right, so get your calculator out on your phone and do 740 times 0.8. And Beth, you do 740 times 1.2. Should be like 580 or something.
$592.
All right, and Beth?
1.2 is 888.
888. All right, so we're doing 20% above and below on the button.
Okay.
All right. Lot size, what's the table say?
Lot size. If less than 1 acre, stay less than 1 acre.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah,
That's pretty liberal.
If we have a 6,000 square foot lot, and we're looking at comps up to an acre, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty liberal.
In a neighborhood like this, how many houses sit on an acre?
0.
None. So that's why the table's set that way, because there's diminishing returns on excess land square footage. But you need to recognize that's kind of a hole in the table, right?
Yeah.
So you want to pay attention to your comps and go, oh, wait a minute, this one's on a 1/3 of an acre. That's really superior to mine, so I'm going to make an adjustment for that.
Okay.
If it's a full acre, I'm going to try and exclude it because it's not really the buyer for that isn't always the buyer for a 6,000 square foot city lot. The reality is in this part of Tacoma, you're just gonna find a bunch of 6,000 square foot city lots. You with me?
So instead of doing that broad 1 acre deal, does it not make sense to go in at, let's say this lot is, what was this, 6,000? Yeah, 6,000.
60.
So you wouldn't go 4,000 to 8,000 on a range to try to?
We don't have the 20% rule, but I would probably say 10,000 or less.
Okay.
Because really, in that part of Tacoma, yeah, 10,000 or less is reasonable. Because a lot of those little tiny houses are like sandwiched onto a little section of somebody else's property.
All right, let's do that then. As a group, we will agree, we're gonna make it 10,000 or less square feet, right? So we gotta make sure we change
Yeah.
it from acres,
Yeah.
because 10,000 acres is a lot. What's our age criteria?
1918, updated
Oh.
1951.
10 or plus or minus 10 years. Is that what you were asking? or-
Yeah, that's the part I'm looking for, but read more, because there's a
Okay, age of
exception.
home exceptions. Homes built less than 10 years ago only use plus or minus the same years old, i.e. only use comps that are 2 years old if the subject is 2 years old. Or don't compare a home built in 2009 to a home built in 2007 or older. I wouldn't say that. Or don't compare a home built in 2009 to a home built in 2007 or older.
Keep reading, and then I'll answer your question.
If subject built 1945 or before,
There we go.
use plus or minus years as criteria starting point.
Plus or minus how many years?
20.
20.
Okay, so 1918, that means 1898 to...
But its effective year was 51. Does that count or not?
No,
No.
It does not.
no,
You go by original.
yeah. Now, if it was remodeled, like a 1950s remodel is meaningless to me and should be to you,
Yeah.
right? 1950s home that was remodeled in 2010, I'm gonna look for 1950 homes that have been remodeled.
Okay.
I'm not gonna compare it to 2010
Right,
homes,
of course.
okay? So, to give a quick answer to your first part of that additional info that you just read, the point is, and it's not really that clear, I guess, if I'm dealing with a 3-year-old house, I wanna use comps that are 3 years either side of that age, right?
Uh-huh.
I want to avoid using brand new though to compare to a 2009 house.
Yeah.
But I will use that rather than use a 1999 house. The key is you're trying to flesh out properties that are similar in that same area. If there are none, that's when you got to start expanding the levers.
Oh, I misread this, no wonder. I was thinking it said built in 2008 or newer, so that doesn't, I get it now.
You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we put in all our filters, and what happened to our 15?
We got one.
Woohoo,
We got
got
one.
one.
So should we
Let's check it out.
remove all of our, yeah? You want to
Let's
see
check
what,
it out. Let's
what
see
one
what-
we got?
yeah.
We can do that. McKinley Ave. Rare find.
No picture.
This is not a flip house.
Oh.
Looks like it would compete with our subject though, wouldn't it?
And it's active and not sold, so you have
It
no
looks
sold. So
nicer
that's all
than our
updated.
subject, though.
Updated kitchen,
Yeah.
updated laundry room.
And how big was the square foot?
Tile.
I mean, the lot.
1919 house, those aren't 1919
Oh,
cabinets.
those are really nice.
No, that's in good shape.
Updated. Yeah.
4125 square foot lot.
Oh, so
Finished
the,
basement with a half bath out in the middle of the...
got a big bathroom down there, or
Yeah.
not very private one.
All right, so 2-bedroom place, that's a comp.
Yeah,
And it's within a quarter mile.
yeah. And it's only 10 square foot less, so it's
Yeah.
really, really close to the.
So what's the first thing we loosen?
The mileage.
The distance, yeah. So make a note of 4816 McKinley. Because if we get to where we have 24 comps, we're going to want to make sure we choose 4816 McKinley because it's the closest to our subject, right?
And how did you determine, oh, because it's .258.
Right, because
Yeah.
right now we're at a quarter. As we start to expand, we're going to get to a point, I suspect, where we have more comps than we need, and we're going to prefer the ones that are closest. Now we have 5, and all I did was go to a half mile.
Okay.
Now, I could make it 2 to 3 bedrooms. What do you think would happen to the head count?
Oh, it's
It's gonna double.
tremendously open.
It's
Or
going to
more.
go
It's gonna go
even
15.
more, right? Oh,
Ooh.
Well, that's because of the square footage being so small, maybe, or something?
you're probably right.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it's
really.
hard to get 3 bedrooms
Yeah.
into a,
700.
right? But we don't want to do that. We would, now that we
Stay
have
at the
5,
2, yeah.
I would much rather go 5 within a half mile and pick another 2 bedroom that's maybe a mile, even a mile and a quarter, and say, hey, these are the best available. I had to expand it a little bit on one of them, but it was more important to this broker that we provide a 2-bedroom comp because this is a neighborhood saturated with 3-bedroom houses.
Okay, I have a question. That house on McKinley, because we haven't been to this house, we don't know for sure, but that house on McKinley is in nice shape, it's really updated, and our house, being that it's foreclosed and everything, is probably not as nice and updated.
So you hear the
I know.
I'm disparaging our house.
predisposition there? My goodness.
So,
That's opinion.
yes, so far, I'm just saying, I'm
Everybody's got one.
preparing myself when I walk in and fall through the floor or something, you know, but,
Bring your safety harness.
yes. So,
Cool.
so now, if we're doing just solds right now, or we're not, we're
No,
looking
we're
at
in active
everything,
and-
that's right,
active
okay.
and sold.
Because I was just gonna say, wouldn't you take the ones that were actually more similar than, that were a half mile away than you would one that was really updated close?
You
or-
are like a shill.
Oh, okay,
That's actually a perfect topic. We won't know until we've been there
Yeah.
what we're dealing with condition-wise, right?
right.
If I'm a bank, do I want you to tell me it's as-is value or it's as-repaired value? Like if it's in bad condition, what it would be worth if I made the repairs?
You want it as is, wouldn't, isn't that what the?
No, if you're gonna make repairs, then you'd wanna know what it would sell for if you made repairs.
The right answer is I need to know both.
Yeah,
Mm.
And so as a really good BPO agent, the ideal BPO is going to be 1 active and 2 solds of as is or as repaired,
okay,
and then 2 actives and 1 sold, because I'm always doing 3 and 3, right? I want to show, here's 3 comps that tell you what it's worth as it is now,
Okay.
and here's 3 that show you what it would be worth if you fixed it up.
so say the breakdown again, does it matter which two?
It doesn't matter, it's just you gotta have actives
Okay.
and solds of both.
Okay.
So you're either gonna have 2 and 1 of one and 1 and 2 of the other, or vice versa.
2 of now,
Right.
and 2 and 1 of repaired.
Now recognize, that's not always possible,
Yeah,
right? I've written many a BPO where I've given 6 comps and 5 of them point to as is because nobody in the neighborhood's updating
Right.
anything. But I found one, I had to expand the distance, but hey, Mr. Asset Manager, I did that because I wanted to show you what a home with brand new whatever in it was selling for. This comp's 2 miles away though, so understand that that's a
so big
stretch.
I'm not quite clear on why they care about what the after repair value would be
They're
because.
deciding if they want to make repairs before they list it.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? You're making an argument on whether they would get a return on that investment.
Mhm. Like what other houses are
Yeah,
able to do.
absolutely.
Next door, they just put in a new kitchen, sold for 50,000 more. or
Some
whatever.
of our clients make the repairs every time. Others never make repairs, even though it's a really compelling argument that they should.
You just provide them with the.
But we're going to provide it anyway. And you'll see, I'll show you on the form, it says at the bottom, what's the value? Is what is the as is and what is the as repaired. Okay? So we've got 5 comps, all within a half mile, all without stretching any of our filters. And all we did was the first lever adjustment that our table told us to do. Two solds, a pending backup, and two actives.
It's pretty nice.
That's pretty good.
They're all 2 beds. This pending backup, and well, do you notice anything about the pending backup?
It's way low, right?
Way low, and it's sold in 2 days. That is 0 indication of value.
They left money, yeah.
That's a bad listing agent that told his client, we're gonna have to list it basically for free to get an offer so
Well,
I
it's-
can start negotiating.
If it's pending backup, is it a short sale and they don't have the approved price yet, maybe? Is it pending?
I could guarantee it,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's a meaningless data point is my
right,
argument.
we can't use it,
We would rather not,
yeah.
Right.
right? Short sales don't make good comps unless they're sold.
Yeah.
If they're active or pending, you gotta, now if this
That's
were.
the biggest house too.
If this were pending backup at 109, I would probably include it, but at 59, no way. So really, I only have 4 comps,
Okay,
right? I have 2 solds, 2 actives, I need 2 more, 1 each. So I'm gonna go back to my criteria.
2 solds, 2 actives. But you've got that other one on McKinley too.
That one should still be in there,
Oh,
right? Yeah,
It is,
4816 McKinley's still in
It's in the
there.
ring.
So what's the next thing to expand on the table?
the
Well,
bedrooms.
would you take that back down to 2.5 or 0.25 and then go,
Do the bedroom.
let's see, second would
He's
be,
like making it up as he goes along.
Number of
I'm
beds.
asking you to read, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's right though, you put it back down and then
Right.
you put the bedrooms
Right, but
up.
he was been fishing
Slow.
for an answer.
He's slow, no.
So,
cookies.
quarter mile, if this were a 3-bedroom house, I would say, yeah, let's make it 3 to 4 and pull it back down to a quarter mile. Because it's a 2-bedroom and that is such a unique
Smaller.
Tight.
deficiency,
square footage.
really, is the best way to put it. I would rather go to a mile and leave it at 2 bedrooms, okay?
So that's,
So first thing I'm gonna
you
do,
can do that when it's called for.
yeah, use your professional judgment, right? I'm gonna mark the ones that are closest and then bump this to a mile. And see what happens.
We'll probably get a lot now,
11,
yeah.
right? So we're in business now. Oh, and it didn't remember my marking.
And that's probably helpful when you really know the neighborhood, because some neighborhoods can change pretty quickly as far as their makeup.
For
But,
sure.
but in a place like this area, it's pretty typical for this mile that you've
For that
expanded out
mile,
to, right?
that's
Because you
exactly-
take that into consideration as well.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But,
So what I would have done
Okay.
before shifting it to a mile is I would have made a written note of, okay, I know I'm gonna use 4816, I know I'm gonna use this one,
Okay.
these
Check 'em
4,
off.
right, from
Uh-huh.
that previous screen, excluding the pending backup. Then expand it to a mile, and then pick which, I need 1 more active, 1 more sold, right?
okay,
So let's just assume it's these 3 actives, and that looks like another short sale right here. 59. So I'm keeping those, right? So there are my 6 comps. Okay? And I'm already thinking, where am I gonna end up on value, right? So I'm not deciding anything, but I'm already starting to form an opinion.
Does
Because
it-
when I get there and I see the condition, I wanna evaluate or weigh that into my opinion.
does it matter also in terms of like, okay, we put everything in the 180 days, but if something just sold last week as compared to one that sold the
Absolutely.
very beginning of that time frame,
Yep. I would
that's
much
the big
rather.
one that's sticking out there, right?
Yeah.
too.
In this market, right, so I left off in October, So of the solds, those are the three most recent,
Okay,
right? So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna
Okay.
give more weight to the March and February ones.
and those are the lesser ones though.
Yeah, those are the lower ones.
Which is strange because all the actives are higher.
Yeah.
It's changing that much. That still was back in March and.
February and March.
In February, things have changed, even since
Well-
then.
Yeah.
I don't know though, because the other one that sold back in whatever, November is higher.
We don't know the condition.
Yeah, we don't know it all. We haven't
So
looked yet.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna print this one-line version of this
Okay,
with all of them. I'm not gonna delete any
yeah.
because I wanna have them all with me when I go to the property. I'm gonna print it and bring it with me, okay? So I'm gonna leave this up.
And you just do a one line, not like a thumbnail or anything, so you can kind of even look at,
That's
The
your,
front of it?
that's your call. If you wanna have photos with it, you
front of the
could.
picture.
I'm a data guy,
Okay,
alright? Now we're going to the house. So we know what we're expecting to see. We've even seen a photo of it. It's gonna be easy to find as we're pulling down the street. Alright, so we pull up, we go ahead and shoot the exterior photos. You remember that from first class? That's close-up of the house number, front view, angled front view, street scene. This is an interior BPO. So you're not trespassing, you're not shooting photos of a house where a homeowner might come running out and go, what the hell are you doing? I shot one Friday, and I walked up the driveway and went to the gate, basically, because I wanted to shoot the side of the house. And as soon as I turned around, this Suburban comes pulling in behind me. And so I always tread very lightly, you know, because I would be pissed off,
Yeah.
right, if I'm them. So I always kind of, I sort of walk like I'm tiptoeing, and I come out and I just say, I don't want to alarm you. I don't know if you're maybe doing a refinance or something, but your bank asked me to come out and do an appraisal. And they go, they're always like, you know, bowing their neck, and then when I
Yeah.
say that, they go, well, yeah, refinance, that's right. Well, they know they're late on their payments. I'm not the first person that's probably been to their property, and they're uncomfortable, embarrassed, whatever. Now they think Ed's in the dark on what's going on. He's just here to shoot photos. Sure, come on in,
He's just a guy taking pictures.
right? This isn't that. This is post foreclosure. You got an assignment from a bank that said, congratulations, you're the listing broker, go do a BPO.
right.
By the time you get there, it's already been rekeyed. You're just shooting the interior, right? So my point is, you don't have to limit yourself to street scene, house number, front view, and angled view. You can walk the whole thing, shoot all four sides,
Take as much as you feel
shoot the
necessary.
backyard. More photos is better.
Okay.
Remember in the last class, I said we had
Yeah.
one client that wants a minimum of 40
50 or
photos.
whatever. Yeah.
That's, you gotta really work hard to get 40 photos of a 700 square foot house,
Yeah.
right? But we do it. So
Roof view.
in your case, we will have already been there and shot the photos for you. Right?
When we're doing a BPO, you guys have already been there,
Yep.
but we still have to go to the property.
You don't have to.
Oh,
I recommend you do
yeah,
for the first 2 or 3 assignments you get, because these are just skills, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna get better at it. It's helpful to walk a property, and plus it's exciting. You just got your first listing from a bank. That's the first
Yeah.
of many, and it's kind of cool. And so you would want to drive it and shoot the photos. Once you got there, you'll find we shoot always the same photos, right? So our field team shoots the key box serial number so Blake can log it and Jackie can keep record of it. We know where our key boxes are. Front view, you already saw the house number, that's side view right, angled view left, side yard, that's the back patio,
it's got a deck.
got a compressor there, back lawn, back of the house, right? And now you're doing BPO, you're thinking, ooh, exterior paint is
Yeah.
needed.
More than paint. It looks
Right?
like looks like it's got a siding issue or something.
Oh, we have a siding issue
Yeah.
and a potential foundation issue. That's interesting, right? That's the foundation.
Ends there.
That's a new wing.
Somebody expanded, yes.
That's a treehouse
They
version.
did a very good job of it, it would appear. Right?
And some kind of outbuildings, huh?
Garage, detached garage,
Mm.
alleyway access, backyard, more backyard, gas meter, or electric meter, sorry.
Somebody, I mean, so once we get the assignment, is somebody keeping up the yard and stuff? Because that looks pretty kept up for,
We mow every yard,
yeah, okay.
once a month during October through June, and every 2 weeks
And the rest of
during the
time.
summer months. But this is a new assignment, so that's the initial yard cleanup, is why it looks
It looks great.
recently mowed, and it is recently mowed, right? So we got a little bit of trash out stuff, but you can see that that's all cleaning materials, right? There's a window, so we probably have a broken window somewhere that's about to be replaced. Kitchen is basically original, 1951 remodel,
Yeah.
right?
It has a dishwasher, which they didn't have back then.
1918, come on.
I mean, in 51, they didn't have one back then
Yeah,
either.
that's even like 1980, that's sweet. Another bathroom. Stuff hanging on the wall so long that it's stained. So, I'm going too fast. How's that carpet look?
Doesn't look pretty.
So we would recommend, depending on what the comps say, right?
Yeah.
We are making a list as we're walking through this property of what it needs. We're then going to go look at data to prove whether that expense would be justified. It might not, but we still have to tell them the repairs that are needed are the following. And then at the end, you mark whether you're going to recommend they actually make the repairs. So you can list 20 things and say, but don't do any of them. But you would still give them the list.
Okay, so, and how stringent are you with that? I mean, that's subjective, what's repaired, what needs to be repaired. I might think this carpet's trash, that you might not think that. I don't know.
One of us is right.
I know, but I'm just
So,
saying,
and
how do you tell?
I'm not being facetious. I
Yeah.
mean, it is not as subjective as it should be.
Okay,
Like, I know your skills are quite high. I know your skills are quite high. You can go into a property and go, you know what? A good shampooing will salvage this.
uh-huh.
The
In
right
other words,
answer.
somebody's gonna buy this without having to repair it.
Exactly.
Somebody's not gonna buy this if you don't repair it.
Exactly.
Okay, dogs have been in here.
And your comps are gonna help
Yeah.
you decide that.
Okay.
It's not something you really want to decide while you're standing in it. You're gonna wanna notate it and really have a good image in your mind of how bad
Take
the.
pictures and everything.
And then you go to the comps, and the comps either say, yeah, a totally updated house in this area sells for $119. An as-is house like this will sell for $118.
Forget it.
Don't spend a nickel,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Wrong direction.
Plus, there could be like hardwoods under there too, maybe that, you know.
Well, yeah,
Could
those are all the
cause-
things you would be
yeah,
checking for,
yeah.
wouldn't you? Like checking and seeing if there's that kind of value in it?
Sure, yeah.
Because a lot of those houses do.
Most of the time that someone
They're
already
not,
has.
they're not
There's a
hardwoods
cor-
in Tacoma, they're fir.
Yeah, there's a
for-
corner that's peeled up,
Yeah.
or pull a
Right.
vent out, right? The heating vents are the best places, because they're never
Yeah.
tacked down right there. There's an old cheap shower insert.
That doesn't look that old.
That's-
It's installed sideways though.
Yeah.
No, go
The
back
sink
there.
doesn't hold water very well.
Go back to that surround, it didn't look old
No,
to
it's just
me.
a fiberglass
Yeah.
enclosure. It's not-
Old in like 10 years.
Oh,
Not 1918, not even 1951.
okay, but not brand new.
Not brand new.
Okay.
Cedar lined. I would bang my head. What is that?
Gotta do the forward lean, gotta do the thinker.
That's
Wow.
right.
There's
Wow.
gotta be some reason for
Water
that.
closet.
All right.
Okay.
So we have a feel now of condition,
Oh,
right?
And then, like, the
Electrical.
panel is important to look at to see if it's updated or not, and stuff
Got
like
some
that.
settling. That crack tells me it's lath and plaster.
Right.
Right?
Sheetrock will flex.
Right. So, yeah, the panel, like you'd want to know if it's
Knob and tube or.
a Federal, right?
Yeah.
Federal, the exploding panel.
Zinsko.
Zinsco, the exploding panel.
Uh-huh. So,
Pellets.
so do you have a list of those kind of things? I mean, I've heard of all those before, but
No.
I don't
Just shoot-
remember the names.
Just shoot pictures. I mean, that's the beauty of you
But
walking
I'm
the property.
saying, you know that federal is the one that blows up.
Right.
And I've heard that before, but I wouldn't have necessarily remembered that if you wouldn't have just said it. So do, you
I
just
don't have a
learn these
list.
things, you
Yeah.
just learn them, okay?
Yeah. Write that down. You just learned it.
Federal or
Zinsco.
Zinsco. I remember those one other.
Think of how
ones in there.
smart you are compared, the average agent doesn't know that, right?
And then the fuses are called Edison fuses, the round ones with the little glass on the front, those
Yeah.
are
That's-
Edison fuses.
Aren't those, isn't that knob and tube?
No,
No.
knob and tube is this type of wiring,
Yeah, but, oh, Edison fuses is
Edison, yeah.
the old kind of
Yeah.
fuses.
Yeah. But you would want to note in your report if it had knob and tube. Or
Yeah,
if it had
I've
a
seen that
Zinsco.
before. Okay.
All right, so we've shot all our photos. We have a really clear idea of condition. We've researched public records, right? We looked to see if it was previously listed, and we found that it was 2005. We chose our comps, and we shot our photos. So now, we're ready to fill in our report. And this is where you start to opine. You know what opine means, right? It's your opinion of what the value needs to be, all right? So what do you think I mean when I say, when does up mean down?
Oh, when you're applying your adjustments to the comp, not the subject property.
Yeah.
Nailed
Right.
it,
Good.
right? Because, I know this was the garage, but to make my point, let's say this was the subject, and this is one of the comps. I'm gonna make, because this is superior, I'm gonna make downward adjustments to bring it in line with this house.
Yes.
The best example would be, let's say our house, let's say they were equal in all aspects except for the subject property had a hot tub and the comps did not. What direction adjustment am I going to make to the comps to bring them in line with the subject?
Up.
I'm going to adjust them up, right? Because the theory is, if I'm a buyer and I'm interested in both of them equally, except a hot tub has value to me, and if I'm willing to pay $100,000 for a house with no hot tub, wouldn't I pay $103 or $102.5 or whatever you value a hot tub at for one that has a hot tub?
So, yeah.
Therefore, if one doesn't and one does, I adjust the one that doesn't upwards by $2,500.
Okay.
And I do that for every characteristic about the property. Square footage, bedroom, bath, condition.
On
We
each
could-
comp?
On each home.
Oh.
And we could even make an example we were talking about earlier about the school districts. You remember that? There's a line on the form that says other. I would put inferior school district. And then I'd make a downward adjustment to the comps because my subject has an inferior school district.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
You should try to make it the same as.
So let's see what it looks like, right? So this is the form. This is the Fannie Mae Form 1004. This is the same form that the appraiser's going to use. What we do is we use a website that allows us to key in the data and produce that form. And it's called AMN Forms. And I actually have it, I think, already open over here. Right? So this is our subject, right? Let me make it bigger.
So when you say allows us to, because we're not appraisers, is that what you're saying? Or
No.
even appraiser
Anybody
would go to
can
here?
subscribe to that.
Okay,
What you guys will have is a Word version of the BPO form.
okay.
I'm just showing it to you in a portal
the site,
because it's easier
okay.
to kind of navigate. Okay? Plus, it's already been filled in,
Yeah,
so we don't have to fill it in.
okay.
But we could do exactly what we're about to do in that form I had on the screen a second ago,
Okay.
and we would just be typing it in directly,
Okay.
okay? So in this form, we just go through, see this yellow button right here? We're just gonna work our way from left to right through conditions, marketability, closed sales, right? Those are the comps. Listings, those are the other 3 comps. Marketing and repairs, value and comments, additional comments and photos. We're putting all that information in. You guys will be the ones putting that in on your listings. So we know the address, right? We know the date of the report. We know the client, right? We would put Freddie Mac in there. Now this particular property is a Freddie Mac property, they own it, but a hedge fund is buying it from Freddie Mac.
Oh,
So the hedge fund said, hey Ed, we'd like you to investigate this address because we're going to buy this house depending on what you tell us it's worth,
okay.
right?
So does that name go there instead then? If it's,
In this case, we put the hedge fund's name in.
okay, whoever's the client for us.
AHP. Yep.
Whoever's owns the
Yeah,
account.
because remember, that's who you're doing the
Yeah.
report for, right?
Uh-huh.
All right, so then we're going to go conditions. This is market conditions. So they're saying, we have this house, tell us about the area around it. Is it depressed? Is it thriving? How many homes are selling, right? Market conditions are improving. Would you agree that marketing conditions are improving?
In Tacoma is what we're talking
In
about,
general.
right?
Yeah.
But you're
But
talking
you-
more local though.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
you mean Tacoma, right?
We mean Tacoma.
Yeah.
Yep. Employment conditions, well, unemployment's still not so good, right? So we put declining. Market prices have increased 8% in the last 6 months.
Where'd you get that from?
Pulled it off the internet. We get it from market
The-
price. We get it from the MLS
The
staff.
front sheet, oh
Yeah.
yeah. So you do that, how, for every one of you, you just check, like, once a month, you check and see what the stats are for that
Yeah,
month?
every BPO that we're going to do this month will have that answer.
Okay,
Next month it might change.
yeah.
Owner occupancy versus tenants. 70-30 is a pretty typical answer. If we know something contrary to that about a specific area, then we'll update that.
We use that as kind of a default.
Use that as a default, yep.
And that's okay, I mean,
Yeah.
just to say that's the average,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah. Supply, oversupply, normal, or shortage?
Shortage.
Pretty clearly a shortage.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as short in Tacoma as it is.
Oh, it's not?
I have a lot of, I'm gonna be showing there on Friday, and I have a lot of things to choose from, so.
All right. Number of sale comps. Now for these, this question is on every BPO form, right? So even though we're in a portal, think of this as a field on the form. It's on that form. So for this answer, we use the mile
Okay. That we
because
have.
that's acceptable. When we chose the best comps, we made it as tight as we could. But when they say, well, how much is
Where did this
selling in
come
that
from?
area?
Yeah,
We're going to use we'll open it back out to a mile.
okay.
It's like a choke on an engine, right? We open up the choke. There was a total of 10. How many REO and corporate listings within a mile? 55.
Does that count short sales then too? Is that a corporate listing? I don't know what.
No,
that
corporate
means.
would be bank-owned,
owned.
servicer,
Okay.
or builder.
So REOs really, that foreclosed?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right? In that mile, right, remember we're still talking about
Yeah.
those 10, what's the value range? So what's the smallest and what's the biggest? If I'm close to, what's that point, Brown's Point? If I were close, I could have, 85,000 to 1.3 million.
Yeah,
That's conceivable. It's whatever's in that mile.
sure.
Right.
A mile, there's a lot of different places in a mile.
Exactly, right? Subject improvement is appropriate for the neighborhood. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just kind of right down the middle. Average marketing time, that's for that mile, those 10 comps, what was average? So this section is easiest done, calculated, with the single line CMA. Because it auto-calculates
All
the
that
average
information.
days on market, it auto-calculates the average price.
So you're just going back in and getting, I mean, you print
Extract
that
it.
out, and
Yeah,
when you do your mile, you print that out so you can go back and get all the
yeah.
data out.
Print
there.
it, or like, a lot of us have 2 screens.
Okay,
Any agent that does a lot of BPOs will have 2 screens.
okay.
That's why, like, with your computer, at home or here
Yeah.
or whatever,
You can have them
just
both.
plug a second screen in. Because
Yeah.
then you can put the MLS on one, and your form on the other, and just click, 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 okay? Is financing available? Yes. You have to decide. If it's uninhabitable, you would say, yes, financing is available, but not FHA. Or no, no financing available, this is cash only. You gotta evaluate that, okay? Last 12 months on the market, they're asking if the subject has been listed in the last 12 months. Well, we already know that's not true, right?
So the financing available, you know, if you would say, you could say yes, because you could do a rehab loan on it or something like that, on that particular one.
Yeah, you could say cash only or 203K,
Yeah,
something like that. Right? If it had been listed but not sold, then they're asking, why didn't it sell? And almost every time that you're gonna fill that in, you're gonna say, because it was overpriced. I mean, that's really the only reason, unless it's next to a nuclear tower, then you might say that. Unit type, single family, does it have HOA? We know in this case it does not. If it did, what are the fees included? What's the association name and contact number, right?
so you,
Now we're into the comps. So 2 of the 3 are inside a half mile, right?
yeah,
We're not gonna go back and see if they picked the same ones we picked, but what I would do, once I got it down to my 6, is I would open up the 3-up report. Has everyone seen the 3-up, it's
Yeah.
called,
yeah.
in the MLS? Let's go look at it real fast here. Oh, I'm already in it, sorry. All right, so I'm gonna narrow it again. So now I just have 6. And then I'm gonna go actions, print, and additional reports, 3-up comparison. And the reason I do the 3-up, Google Chrome and,
That's that thing I told you about that happened to me the other day. That's the dead gym.
is that what you call that?
Well, that's what they call it.
So 3-up will bring up the 3 actives side by side on one sheet. And that's super helpful because guess what I'm doing here? Side by side on one sheet, right? So we go down, we fill in the addresses, the distance, whether it's far from our subject or not. And then we get into the characteristics. Age, 25 years different. So that's not a comp we probably came up with because our filters didn't allow for that,
Right.
right? But Matthew may have chosen that one because it had other characteristics,
yeah.
maybe because it's a remodeled one and he wanted to show why, what the home would be worth after remodeled. Whatever the reason is, we're not going to rebut whether these are good comps or bad. But we make an adjustment for the youth of that house, $500 a year. Now, in the manual that you have and that is on your computer, there's a table further back that says, okay, now that you've got your comps, when you make adjustments, use these metrics to adjust. Now, this form is pretty handy because once you tell it what price per square foot you want to adjust, it auto-calculates it. So I could change that to $10 and it would give me a much smaller adjustment. And look, for the house that's bigger than our subject, it made a negative adjustment automatically. So the system, AMN Forms, knows, okay, if the comp's bigger than the subject, make a downward adjustment. If it's smaller than the subject, make an upward
And
adjustment.
we can go in and use it that way too, or,
No, you just use your calculator.
okay.
You'd have to license this,
Okay.
right? Garage. $10,000 per car stall. What do you notice about this line item? Anything in particular?
Or
Carport.
carport.
Carport's in there as well as garage.
Do we not have a garage?
We do have a garage,
It's,
We do.
yeah.
so they didn't give us
Detached.
credit for it.
Right. And we didn't go through all the photos. Maybe it's so dilapidated that it's given no value, but it didn't look to me like
Well,
it
you know,
was.
I don't think it was really a garage,
Might have been a shed-
because it didn't
shed.
have a,
It didn't have a big
it
garage
didn't
door.
have
It
a
might have been
door.
a out.
It was an outbuilding.
You were looking at the view of it from the house.
Up
Yeah.
the alley.
The garage door is off the alley, it's on the other side.
Okay. Because I thought you showed that too, but didn't, okay. So there's just a mistake on that, in other words.
Potentially, yeah,
Yeah.
unless it's so beat up on the inside, but you would make, let's say that's a two-car garage. Now we're making an upward adjustment here, which affects, right? That number would go to 0. If we had a two-car garage and this was a $10,000 upward adjustment, that's a $20,000 swing. Right? Because right now there's $10,000, negative 10,000 of adjustments in the higher parts.
Brackets, okay.
And the total net is 20,000. But look what happens. When you go through and make adjustments, the numbers get pretty close to being in line with each other.
Yeah,
That's the ideal scenario.
yeah, where, you know, you might not have this, but you have this, so it all balances.
Right, and it all kind of works out. Fannie actually has a guideline that says if your net adjustments exceed 10%, then that's not a good comp.
Go back.
That's too many adjustments. They also look at gross adjustments. So like, I could make a $600,000 adjustment because I'm comparing a 2,000 square foot house to a 7,000 square foot house.
Wow.
I could also have the 2,000 square foot house could be on the water and the other one's not. So I could make a giant upward adjustment and a giant downward adjustment, and it could, if this number is close to 0, that means that's a pretty damn good comp. Well, not in the example I just
Right.
gave,
I mean,
right?
why would you ever,
It's not
do that.
even a comp,
yeah.
right?
it's
It
not a
shouldn't
goal.
even have come up in my search.
Right.
But that's why Fannie says, well, we're gonna look at net adjustments, but we're also gonna look at gross.
Okay.
Take the negatives and the positives off and add them up, and if it's like the example I just gave, check it out. But
You're
this,
gonna help us with this, right? When we first get these?
absolutely, absolutely, I've done
Because
a
it's
few,
getting
so. But this can be a really good indicator, because, I don't know if this form does it, but some of your clients' forms will have a little radio button down here that says, over here it'll say, which is the most similar? And so what they're asking is, which one do you give the most weight to? Well, your reason might be the one on McKinley, because it's the closest, and it sold for $119. If a house right next door sold for $119, and a house that's 10 blocks away sold for $88, do you think our subject value is closer to $119 or $88?
I think it depends on the house, because that one on McKinley was completely updated, and our house wasn't at all.
So you're so contrarian.
I'm sorry.
All things being equal, is our house closer to 119 or
Yes.
88, right?
If it's close by,
Right,
obviously.
so I would check most similar,
Okay.
all things being equal,
Yeah.
condition-wise, to the one that's closest. To illuminate your point, though, they aren't the same condition.
They're not
So I would
the
have a
same
big
condition.
adjustment for condition, bringing down
McKinley
the one on
does.
McKinley, which would make this number blow up,
Yeah.
right? So I can also look at these numbers and go, okay, which one had the lowest net adjustments? Well, in this case, it's comp 2, $7,600. That means it had the most similarities
Yeah.
and the fewest dissimilarities. Okay? We do the same exercise for the solds. There's a $7,500 adjustment. right? So now I'm like thinking, wow, the one that's most similar points to a really low value compared to the others, right?
Really? Even though it's the most similar, huh?
It had the least amount of adjustments.
I thought it was the middle one.
I just moved
Oh, okay.
from sold to actives.
Okay, so now,
But those are much further away than this one. So even though this one had more adjustments, it might be most similar. Right? So the actives point to a value somewhere between 90 and 95. The solds, oops. These two are closest, huge range, right?
yeah.
But we know this one had the fewest adjustments, right? It was the middle one, right? And it comes out at 77.4. So we want fewest adjustments, yet still closest to our subject. And we haven't even looked at the photos yet.
Okay.
So we don't want to answer the value until we've looked at the photos. Repairs. Exterior paint, interior paint. There's some patchwork for the lath and plaster, right? The carpet, let's say we concluded it needed to just be pulled out. The cabinets, if I really wanted to make that thing pop, I would redo the kitchen, I would redo the bathroom, right? So
Yeah.
you could list all of this.
What about the exterior, where, is it even sellable, habitable with that no foundation on that one part right there?
Right,
Is
yeah.
that, does that
That could be a
influence
big,
that?
that could be a problem.
Illegal
Yeah.
addition.
Yeah, so first thing we have to decide is, are we gonna recommend that they make repairs? And the answer to that question depends on who is our target buyer. If our target buyer is an investor, we don't wanna put a nickel in this thing, right? Because all we're doing is saving him money on things he needs to do.
Let them do that.
Let them do it. But it ultimately will come down to, can I get more for it now as is? Or if I spent 20 grand, could I get 20 plus the margin in 60 days? And my comps are what's going to point to that.
Okay.
Okay? Now, in the photos, we only have one photo of each comp. 3 solds, 3 actives. The rest of the photos are our subject. So I would be smart to go back into the MLS and look at the interior photos of those to determine what Beth is sort of pointing at, which is we need to know if they should spend the money and do we make a condition adjustment or not, those sorts of things. So once I've looked at all those photos, I can go back into the matrices where the comps are and make a condition adjustment. Right? So let's go to, oh, I'm at the bottom right now. Condition. Right? Now that I've seen the inside of ours and I've seen photos of all the comps, I could change this to fair, because that's below average. And I would, let's say this was McKinley, I would say above average, or I could say remodeled. If I said above average or remodeled, I would have to make a downward adjustment on about what I think that remodel cost was.
Wow.
So I might make a negative $35,000 adjustment, right?
Close, I mean,
And if I consider mine to be fair, I really have to make a downward adjustment to the ones that I consider average too. Now, it might not be 35 grand because the one on McKinley, that was all new stuff.
new stuff.
Right, pretty
Right?
nice.
You don't have to be new to beat me or my house, right?
Yeah.
You just have to be better maintained, less neglect, you know, no cantilevered, no foundation part of the house,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I might make a $35,000 downward adjustment for that nice house, but only a $10,000 downward adjustment for just a decent house that's been better
And
maintained.
how did you come to those numbers? I mean, I know if you know how much a kitchen remodel is, you kind of know that, but that house on McKinley was a small, house, so it wouldn't maybe, I don't know, how, I mean, is 35 really a pretty good number, you think, for a small kitchen remodel?
No, I think that's too much money
That's
for
what I'm
that
thinking,
kitchen.
yeah.
Right, 'cause
But I'm doing
sometimes-
bathrooms and more in that house.
Okay, so, all
Right.
right, you're taking that whole.
I'm
thing.
saying everything about that house that's nicer than mine, we
Would
could
come
do
to
to
that.
ours for about 35 grand.
But, and you got that number because of your knowledge of how much things cost, or is there a matrix for that too?
No, just experience.
Okay,
Yep. I have a book, you're welcome to use it. It's called Marshall Swift, and it'll tell you what a new shower insert would cost, what a new furnace would cost, all that stuff.
okay,
You are expected to have a good enough understanding of repairs to be able to give them a ballpark idea. If it's so difficult that you're not sure, the guy that shot all those photos will give us a bid.
okay.
And we may already have a bid on this one. In fact, I bet you we do.
Is that John then?
That's Kevin,
Okay.
yeah, right?
John's the inspector.
So you would go through and make adjustments for condition after you evaluated the comps, and then all of that discussion that we had about these numbers down here would change,
Yeah,
because we just made some pretty big SWAC adjustments.
okay, I have another question.
That's
So,
right.
When we're dealing with a little tiny house in a kind of a depressed neighborhood, but if you're talking about a comp that, not as far out as that one in Renton, because that was really bizarre, but we're talking about a house that originally was very well built, but through this whole process was trashed somehow,
Right.
and is really a valuable house. So it wouldn't do you any good to, repair the kitchen minimally if it was the kind of kitchen that the rest of the whole house is $500 to $1,000 a square foot.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't repair the kitchen the way you would in a $1,500, you know what I mean, square foot house. That you,
Right.
do you put your repairs based on the type of upgrades?
No, you
To the
you
house?
make your repairs based on what the neighborhood demands.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like,
Yeah. So that,
whatever the neighborhood
so the
demands.
$1,000 a foot example is not a good one, because the neighborhood
Didn't demand that.
doesn't point to that at all. But a house in Enetai that was a foreclosure, and the foreclosing party gutted the kitchen because they could Craigslist the refrigerator and the oven and all that, you would put in here, in repairs, new appliances, $10,000.
What it would really cost to do that one the
Right.
right way.
Right.
Okay.
And then you would recommend that they spend the 10 grand, because that buyer doesn't want to deal
Just
with,
expecting it.
they want to move in
Yeah.
and cook their roast right then and there,
Okay.
right? So
You have to
that, you
have
see how
a lot of knowledge,
the
really.
environment is going to kind
Yeah.
of steer you one way or the other. And
What
that's,
type of finishes, you're kind of
yeah.
looking at the quality of
Depending on
finish.
where you're at.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I get it all the time, because everybody wants to think that the house and the house's condition dictates what needs to be done, and it's not actually true. It's the neighborhood around it that will dictate what needs to be done, so that you can compete.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do, is just compete. When somebody goes into Enetai and wants to buy a house, if they're considering yours and two others, you don't want yours to come in last, right? Now, you can get it to come in first by discounting, but that's discount plus margin, right? That it's more than the 10 grand, it's like 15 or 16,
Yeah.
because you want somebody to go, I'm willing to spend 10 of my own, but I'm only gonna do that if I also
Get a good
make some
price.
money,
Yeah.
right? So you have to evaluate that. So there's a lot that goes into it, right?
Right, especially when you don't know every neighborhood either. You'd have to really go and understand the neighborhood you're talking about.
Your comps give you all that, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't be intimidated by it. The real important piece to take away is to be objective about it. Don't go in with any predisposition. Let the comps sort of bring to the surface, what kind of buyer are we looking for? Looks like we're looking for an FHA buyer. Okay, well, that's going to drive a certain amount of repairs, because to get it to go
There's a limit there.
FHA, we know what we need. Or, no, this is a Like if this neighborhood was full of rentals, that's an investor deal all day long, don't spend a nickel,
Yeah.
right?
But by the same token, like, that area is huge military bases, and so you might have a lot of people that
Owner
are.
occupied,
that
VA
are
finance.
VA, and so it needs to be
Right.
repaired.
Look how smart you are when you communicate that in your BPO too.
Okay.
Because if I'm an asset manager, I need to know that.
Yeah.
If my buyer is an owner occupant that's more than likely going to use VA financing, I am absolutely going to do whatever you tell me I need to do in the way of repairs.
To make sure that we get that buyer.
Right, but you better be right,
Yeah.
because the minute I spend $8,000 and then a buyer comes along with VA financing and his appraiser says, oh, no, you gotta do another $4,000, I'm gonna be mad at you
Yeah.
because you missed something. And that can happen, doesn't happen very often though. If that happens, it's more because the issue was in the crawl space and you don't go in crawl spaces or something like that.
There's some issue that we didn't,
That you
weren't
couldn't
aware
see.
of.
Unforeseen.
Yeah, all right?
Okay.
Great discussion and great question.
How do you know when, let's say you are kind of going down the path of a VA buyer market demographic,
Right.
how do you know what you need to put in to qualify or to get that market ready for that particular type of clientele?
Do you know what FHA requires?
No.
Okay, so FHA is the most stringent,
Okay.
and it requires not just habitability, but nothing wrong.
Can't have a
Nothing.
bad roof or something like that.
Yeah, we've had FHA deals get derailed by an appraiser that didn't like the fact that the shed's paint color did not match the house.
Really?
So that's an idiotic extreme, but it's not up to you, it's up to whatever appraiser they bring through.
Well, unless it's a 203K, right?
Right.
Then it's different, but you're talking
Right,
about
but
straight.
this isn't a 203K, right?
Right.
So the curling paint on the back of the house that we saw in the earlier
That's right.
photos, that would have to be gone.
The illegal extension,
No brainer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
The really sort of impact I'm trying to have is it's not the obvious stuff, it's the stupid little stuff. So you really want to go through that with a pretty tough eye and then make your recommendations based on that. VA is just about
Pretty much
as
the
stringent.
same,
Okay.
pretty much the same.
Right? It's not the same appraiser, but it's close. It's a certification that you have to be able to do VA appraisals, and so they take it very seriously, and they want to prove how smart they are, and so they come up with a list wherever they can. Plus, it's a zero-down product, so
Right.
the liability is higher or greater for the lender, so they're going to be tougher. So VA and FHA, you want to laundry list it like we were doing. I click through those photos pretty fast because I've done it a lot, but my eyes go, oh, mold, oh, carpet, oh, vinyl, oh, curl,
Rod,
crack,
rod,
whatever,
right.
ding, ding, ding. And when I'm done, I can make a list in that form that says, vinyl, $280. Exterior paint, boom. The matrix that's in your form tells you estimate exterior paint at X dollars per square foot of the house, interior paint at X
That's what
dollars,
I'm wondering, if we
carpeting at
had-
X dollars, right? So we try and make it as easy for you as we can.
So basic rule of thumb on FHA, approval needs, requirements are basically nothing wrong with the house.
It could be ugly.
That's a good.
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah, right,
ugly,
but function, it's gotta
but
be,
functional,
no, but
right?
that, I
Ugly
understand.
is okay, but
Yeah.
functional, yeah. Yeah. And the kind of crappy part is, there are gonna be occasions where you tell the asset manager to spend $8,000, and you get a really loose appraiser that comes through and he wouldn't have noticed everything. But the minute you don't recommend it, you get the uptight appraiser and then you're embarrassed to your client. In the first scenario, you'll never be embarrassed to your client because you made recommendations, they made the repairs, the house sold, they're happy,
Yeah.
right? That latter scenario, you made recommendations that were incomplete, they spent the money, made the repairs, new guy comes through and finds more, they're not happy.
Oh, if they find more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? So, let me just show you the form real fast and then we'll get wrapped up here. All right. So, when you hit print out of that portal that we were filling in, this is the outcome.
Yeah, I got that.
right? Current market conditions, I know it's too small for you to read, but I'm just making the point, it's everything we were clicking on and talking about. And it adds all the photos.
That's one of the, this is not that house.
Oh.
This is one of the ones he sent us.
Oh, okay.
Right? That's not what?
I was just looking at what she was looking at.
Oh, yeah. So, that looks like the inside of the garage, maybe that's why it's not really a garage. So this would be where you would make, remember the comments I put in the last training about the quality of the construction and how hard we look for comps and all that? This is where you would spell all that out. So
And
which,
it's really okay to go for it.
Yeah.
Really
They want-
detail it.
yeah.
the more description, the better.
Okay.
And the thing that people really fall down on the most is the comments. So
Really?
you want to be thoughtful about them and complete.
Okay.
So what I always do with my yellow pad is I'm making notes. You know, I have a sheet of paper that I throw away once the report's done, but it's scribbles of, ooh, when I get to the comments part, I want to make sure I reference this. I want to make sure I talk about how these are great schools. I want to make sure I talk about why sold number 3 is 1.25 miles away when everything else is not. There was a reason I did that.
You detail all
The
that?
asset managers, yeah, they're going to go through it, and these things are going to jump out at them. And so they'll finish reading your report, but if you don't answer that question mark that you put in their head, then they're going to think your report's not very good.
Incomplete.
Wow. Okay.
Does that make sense? And this isn't meant to intimidate. This is meant to educate and caution you. Because you guys are thoughtful and conscientious.
Yeah, I tend to like to. I like to be detailed.
Yeah.
But
It's when you try and fly through it that you end up messing up. So you just want to slow down enough to, you can go pretty fast on the data entry part of it. But when you go through to do the adjustments, until you get good at it, you really want to slow down enough to make sure you're doing the right direction.
yeah.
And then when you get to the comments, you want to slow down enough to make sure that you're giving them plenty of description so that they understand why the comps you chose are the best and what you're recommending for a marketing strategy.
Okay, so
Okay.
what does that involve?
That's the who's our buyers, an investor, owner, occupant.
Okay,
Marketing strategy means is it as is or as repaired?
and that's what.
There's
you're
actually a
talking-
third option, which is partial repairs. You might have a house that, what would be a good example? A condo that's not in an FHA-approved condominium complex. You might recommend some repairs because they're safety or code issues, but not everything else because it's not going FHA,
Yeah,
right? Right?
or like some repairs, like if it's like important to, I don't know, just because we're salespeople and we know what buyers want, would you say some repairs that would be related to, bringing a buyer?
Oh, yeah,
But,
yeah.
but we don't need to spend, we don't need to spend 30,000 on this, but just new carpet because
Yeah.
it's so, that's the first thing you see when you walk in the
Yeah.
door. I would recommend you get new carpet or something like that.
Absolutely.
Those are the kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would just, say this is not gonna increase the asking price by $5,000, but it's gonna cause your home to sell 30 days
Yeah,
faster.
that kind of stuff. So,
Things like that. Most of what you're gonna recommend will be justified by the comps that are in superior condition. And so really it is gonna affect the price that you get. But there are times where it's just a speed of sale thing. Right? Look at that. Only went a little bit long.
So, you ended up with 3 actives, 3 solds. So you're not defining all the way down to your suggested market price. You're just giving them all of these basically averages. You've given them 6. And that's it, you're done, you're not saying, okay, a recommendation for market price,
No,
okay.
I didn't explain that very well.
Well, maybe I didn't listen.
No, I didn't say it
Okay.
because I didn't pick the comps there,
Mhm.
but you bet. We're gonna,
Yeah, we have to pick the market.
we gotta
price.
go through, fill in the repairs, right? So this BPO isn't finished. They've got the comps plugged in, but we still have to adjust for condition once we evaluate the comps that are selected. I can't do that because our comps that we selected may not be these comps,
Right.
right? But then, let's say I did that. Let's say I listed exterior repairs, foundation work for that corner of the house, blah, blah, blah. Let's say that was $35,000, okay? I'm gonna make upward or downward adjustments accordingly. Might not be a full 35, it depends on the condition of the comps.
To each property. you're
To
doing
each
those.
property under condition, right? So I would probably change this to fair, and then depending on what those comps look like, they're either average or better than average.
Yeah.
Hopefully I found a fair comp. In fact, this one probably is, right? Because these ones sold for 110,000 or more, and this one sold for 82 or 85. This one's probably in fair condition, but I would look at the photos to determine that. So I would make those adjustments, and then I would come down here
There we are, okay.
and, right? As is market value, suggested list price. As repaired market value, suggested list price. So we'll just put some numbers to it, okay? Let's say, these are the solds. So let's say as is, I think is 77,000. Market value 77,000, suggested list 79.9. As repaired, 95,000. Suggested list 97,900 or something like that, right? Then the asset manager could look at the repair list at the top of the page, see that it came to 35 grand, and go, I don't think we should make
It's
the
not worth the
repairs,
while.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, I've already concluded that. If these assumptions we're making are correct,
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest they don't make repairs and that it be an investor.
To do all
Right.
that work.
So then down here, this is boilerplate language. The asterisks are where we plug in detailed information about the subject. Sold comps and active listings appear to support a as-is or full repairs, so you pick one, right? Blank marketing strategy in the subject property area for either a first-time home buyer or an investor, right? Sold comps receive the most weight in determining value since they show how much buyers are generally willing to spend for homes with these criteria. This asset should be able to sell inside average marketing times for the marketplace if we use an aggressive pricing strategy combined with my 92-point REO selling system. We should be able to generate enough traffic to elicit multiple offers. See additional comments for a list of recommended repairs.
So that's your statement, and then you just plug in whatever you want to.
Yeah, and then we'll expand that. We'll take, we'll write language about this part of Tacoma. You know, Tacoma is its own employment center. It's not a bedroom community to Seattle like some of the other areas that we write in.
Right.
Tacoma is an employment and cultural center in and of itself.
Yeah.
Its population is X.
Highly military.
International port.
It's near Joint
Several
Base
bases.
Lewis McChord.
Yeah.
It's near, you know, whatever. It's commute distance to SeaTac International Airport. Because we're trying to give them some context now to
Right.
this house that they have a pretty
Yeah.
good feel for,
Okay.
right?
But, and then your market value and suggested list price, just, I mean, you just do that just like we would do if we were gonna sell it ourselves. We just
Yeah.
look at, okay, this is the comps value, and so I'm going to, for this small of a house, I'm gonna adjust it 2,500, but for a larger house, I might or a different scenario, I might give it a little bit more for the market price.
Right, see, we're at 740, this one's 720, so we need to adjust it up for the 20 feet. At 50 bucks a foot, that's $1,000. This one's 22 feet bigger, so we adjust it down at 50 bucks a foot. This one's only 2 feet different.
Okay.
Those are pretty good comps, right? So we went through, we did that for everything that there was a difference.
Right.
Wherever these boxes are blank, there's no difference between the subject, or negligible, right?
Very similar, and so that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So we've gone through, made all the adjustments, and then, like any good agent, we're gonna go, okay, well, this buyer that bought this house was willing to pay the price at the top. But what we're saying by doing this is that if this house were identical, that same buyer would have paid this much. So our house, had it sold then, is worth 77 grand. What's it worth today? That's where, as you astutely pointed out when we were in the MLS, that's where you got to pay attention to the dates, right? A November sale doesn't give you a very good warm and fuzzy compared to a March sale. Well, let's give more weight to the March sale then, unless it's the worst
comps.
as far as similarity.
Yeah.
But even as the worst, it's still maybe a better comp.
It's telling you something though.
Yeah, because the market's changed a lot. And that's what you have to spell out down here. Right? I gave the most weight to sold number 3. Even though it had the greatest net adjustments, it closed 2 weeks ago, which was more recent than any of the others. And compared to the others, it was the closest, or still close enough to be the best indicator of value. Therefore, I put the most weight on it. And in that case, I'm saying this thing's going to sell for 97 grand. Right? That's where your skills really have to come through. And that's why we say that's where the secret sauce is, right? Because you don't just add 3 up and divide it by 3 and get an average. One of these houses is better than the others. You got to tell us which one.
Which one makes the most sense, and then utilize that in setting your value.
Yeah.
The stuff that seems hard to me, it'd be things like, and that's in our subject property that, you know, it's got the cantilever thing with no, it's like, how do I know how much something like that would cost to repair? I mean, how?
You're going to love Kevin.
Okay,
He's going to every single one of them, and he's going to provide a bid on every single one. And his instructions are, you walk the property and you bid anything that you would do to get it ready for sale. That's not as detailed a direction that you and I follow, which is, well, would we even fix
Yeah.
anything?
right.
He's instructed to fix everything in his, bid.
On paper,
So that we can then decide whether we should fix anything.
line by line.
Okay, so
Exactly.
we rely on Kevin for those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And then if you do enough of them, you'll start getting a feel for the trends of what things cost.
well, I know that certain trends like carpet and paint and stuff, but I don't know about,
The cantilever, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
And-
what
and
do
he
you
may
even do?
say-
I know about trusses now, I would know how to fix your
That's
truss.
right, you're an
but-
expert. He may say, this foundation's so messed up, I can't even tell you,
That's what I'm
because
wondering.
he's not a general contractor, so he wouldn't bid that. He
Yeah.
would say, you better get somebody out here. So in my report, I would say, estimated 25 grand to replace the foundation. We at this point don't know if it needs to be replaced or if it could be repaired. We're gathering bids. And then the asset manager would now have enough info to call me and say, hey, I'm gonna wait until you get those bids.
That's what I'm thinking, it's like, we can put anything in there, but until we really know how much that costs, that could really change the value, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so, something major like the foundation messed up, you don't wanna miss on something like that.
Yeah, but you'll know. I know you're worried about it, and that's good. That's part of what makes you good at what you do. But it's gonna be really clear to you when you shouldn't guesstimate, right?
Right.
Like that.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanna
And when
guesstimate on
those
that.
come up, your first line of attack should be ask me or Matthew.
Okay,
Hey, this looks more concerning than I'm comfortable estimating.
Yeah.
What do you think it would cost to replace a hole in the middle of the kitchen floor that's big enough that a Volkswagen would fall through?
Yeah.
Right? And I would tell you.
And okay, another question, like, say something like happens in a neighborhood, like what happened on Whidbey Island, where half the neighborhood
Right.
falls off.
You need to be able to quantify that and stand by it and warrant it. No.
Thank you. You scared me a
No
lot
pressure.
now.
No pressure.
No, I'm saying that.
Don't screw it
So
up.
then you get an assignment that's 3 houses down from where this whole thing fell in the water.
All right.
That plays into it. It's like, okay, if we sell it today, fine, it's off but if it doesn't, or are we liable, or, can we sell it, or whatever, you know what I'm saying, when you have some weird situation like that.
I don't even want to answer that because that will never happen.
Well,
Never.
yeah,
Never.
never happen,
It'll never happen.
okay. I'm overthinking
Never
it.
say never.
Yeah. Yeah. There will be occasions where you have environmental concerns. Those are external to the property, but doesn't just mean landslide environmental. It
No,
means
no.
the environment around the property, right? We call it obsolescence.
Like a Sarco plant next 3 doors down, or whatever.
Right. Properties have degrees of obsolescence, and there's functional obsolescence and environmental obsolescence. Functional obsolescence would be like
Bathroom next to the kitchen.
3-bedroom, 1 bath, and you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the bathroom.
Right.
Or
Right.
off the kitchen only, or whatever, right?
Garage, yeah, door opens to the
Right.
kitchen.
There's functional obsolescence to the basement bathroom that we saw earlier
I
today,
think.
right? Environmental obsolescence would be like the slide in Whidbey Island,
Yeah.
right? Or a nuclear power plant nearby. I did a BPO on a house that had high tension lines in the front lawn.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why the builder ever thought that was a good idea, but it is literally, I'm
Who bought
talking
that in the first
the
place?
30-foot distance
Big.
between the 4 feet of this 200-foot tall power line thing.
That's drawback.
Right. And,
Get good reception if it's a cell tower or
right.
something.
And if you market it right, it's like a free jungle gym
Yeah.
for the kids.
Yeah.
So that's environmental obsolescence, and that would be, if you had to BPO that property,
Scare me.
right.
Yeah.
What you would probably do is give the most weight to whenever that house last sold, even if it was 5 years ago. Because I'll guarantee there are no other houses like that. You'd look for them,
Right.
but you would have to do like a map search on the MLS, and you know how the power lines, if you look from the satellite view, you can see the power lines because it's all clear cut
Right.
underneath them. You would look for houses and just start picking those, even though they're 6, 8, 10 miles from each other.
Okay.
So there's a way to comp everything with adjustments in particular. Then you have to just start deciding, you don't want your adjustments to be arbitrary. You want to have them based in some sort of fact, but then in the comments you defend why you did that. And they may rebut you. They may say, wow, I think you're being too hard on it for having the power lines in the front lawn. Okay, it's your house.
Yeah, you want to
Right,
buy it?
right.
You want to live there?
Let's
I'd rather-
list it and see who's right.